Hey, come on in. Join me for our session behind the scenes with bridging with our guest today, Zach. I'm Cara Lindell, and I'm the founder of the Bridging Institute and the Bridging Technique, which draws upon my unique background as a systems engineer and an exercise specialist to come up with some really different ways to help you in pain or just to live your life easier and better. And so today we're going behind the scenes. You're coming into my session with Zach, and we're going to go through finding out what's been bothering him. We're going to get some information on what's happened to him in the past. We're going to check and see how his arms, his legs, his core, his head, how's everything moving together? And then we're going to see how the pieces all fit together and do a little bridging, some little wiggles and little stretches, and use that to reset how his muscles work together. And hopefully we're going to be able to help him so he leaves here feeling a whole lot better.
Sounds great to me.
So, Zach, tell me about how you're hoping that we can help you today.
So I have a couple of chief complaints, I would say. I do struggle with migraines,
Okay.
In particular at the base of my skull.
Okay.
And oftentimes it can lead to one side or another. And it often leads to almost like this feeling of pressure buildup, particularly at the temples. So I know that there is potentially some blood flow issues with my upper spine. And poor circulation runs in my family, and the current climate in the world that we're living in right now, I'm trying to exercise more. So poor circulation in my legs is something that I would love to try and potentially improve, to make exercising a little easier and to just improve quality of life a little bit.
Okay. Often I'm working with people who have a particular pain, like migraine is definitely a pain. Any other like aches and pains in the rest of you?
Not that I could think of. When I do run, the primary complaint is shin splints.
Okay.
So I guess that would be a more specific addressal of.
Good deal. And then, so Zach filled out some information for me ahead of time to give me some background on his early life and injuries and accidents and stuff like that. And there's really only one thing that kind of jumped out at me, and it happened a few years ago.
It did.
Tell me about it.
I was a senior in high school, so that summer in between high school and college, which is the best time to have a pretty serious injury happen, I dislocated my left patella.
Ooh, ow.
It wasn't a full dislocation, but it did cause some damage in there.
So what they do? Did you end up with a cast or brace? Or?
I did. I was in basically a full leg cast for, I think it was about a month and a half. And then because of starting school, I had to get on this fast track of physical therapy, which also used a lot of that electrode therapy that sends the electrical.
Stim.
Yes, stim therapy. So I basically did about 8 weeks worth of therapy in about 3 weeks, because that was all the time I had before I went off to school.
So question, did you have the migraines before that?
I have had headaches throughout most of my life, but the migraines in particular, where they've been more constant, and I don't even want to say more intense, but they have lasted far longer, and common over-the-counter medicine hasn't worked quite as well as I would like anymore. But I guess I haven't really thought about it in relation to that particular incident, but definitely have had more migraines over, I would say, the last maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay. So we're going to do some assessing just to see how all the parts of you are connecting together. Okay. So if you think about that injury at your knee, that's a big connection.
Absolutely.
Kind of got a little junked up. And then the cast probably messed up your ankle, knee, hip, maybe your lower back.
And I was walking like this for a while.
So it's going to be interesting to see what we find. So on one hand, it healed, but what we find with casts, whether it's your leg, an arm, whatever, is that all the nice flowy interconnections that should be happening are lost. And so that may end up being what we try to put back together. Okay. So how would that relate to your head? it's kind of like pulling a sweater or a sheet like from one corner. It just stretches everything all to one side. So it just kind of like pulls the framework of everything inside of you off a little bit, which could be causing a tightness up to your head. So who knows? So any questions before we start?
I guess I am curious. Like I love health and wellness. I was seeing a chiropractor for a while as well. And I know that there are so many connections between like your lower spine, for example, and how it relates to your upper spine, and posture is something that I'm also trying to work on. So I'm curious, how does this differ from that?
So one of my clients, has a great contrast for that. He goes, the chiropractors, they put your bones in order, reset your bones. We do that with the muscles. So, and if you think about it, what holds your bones in place? The muscles. So, yeah, great question. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm going to check a few things standing, sitting, laying down on your back and on your stomach, just to see how all the parts kind of work together, and we're going to see what that picture leads us to. Okay, so take a little bit of a step forward. I'm going to come just a tiny bit behind you. So I'm just going to move you a little bit from side to side in a couple different directions, and you don't have to help and you don't have to resist. So here we go. So what I'm looking for is their control and symmetry. So already we're finding one thing. I can easily push you to the left, but to the right, you basically get back to center. You don't go to the right.
Yeah, and I feel a tightness in my left, I guess,
so
quad.
there's definitely something going on with the legs. Okay, we're going to see about turning. And, okay, that's nice. So that worked really well. And then we're going to see about just a little forward and back. And I feel a little hesitation through the left leg. I don't know if you feel like you're less controlled there.
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. Okay, and you can sit down. I'm going to come around behind you. And same thing. So when you're sitting, the difference is this is what's going on in your core without your legs having to control it. Yes. So just a little bit from side to side. Oh, well, that's the same as when we're standing. Turning. Nice. Okay, so this is better. Like, I don't feel the difference between right and left when you're going front and back. So there's still something about the sideways. So maybe all the having to get around with one leg not being able to work might have thrown you off. Okay, so I'm going to let you lay back down on your back. Okay. And you can put your head right over here. Okay. And the first thing we're going to check is just what's the same and what's different with each leg. So I'm just going to lift. And so they feel very similar. I'm actually a little surprised. That's a good thing that they're similar. And then we're going to see, do they turn? And this one, the left one that you had messed up the knee, it turns in a little bit, does not turn out. And the right one turns in and out, and it's just a whole lot springier, if you will. Okay. And then while we're here, I'm going to just see how easily does your foot bend, because the cast probably had... Okay, can you feel the difference in how springy that is?
A little bit, yeah. The right leg, just overall, it feels much like loose, more relaxed.
Like this one, it moves a little bit, but it just doesn't have this bouncy feeling that the right one does. Okay, and we're going to see how it connects into your core. So this is sort of a stretchy feeling at the hip. Okay. And interestingly enough, the right's a little bit tighter. Okay, a couple of things at your arms. I'm just going to wiggle them. Relax. Awesome. And then we're going to see how kind of stretchy it is at the shoulder. So just a really light in and out. And that's okay. So let's see what the other one looks like. So again, does it wiggle? Yes. And how stretchy at the shoulder. And they're pretty comparable, which is great. Biggest thing overall I'm looking for is symmetry. When your body is symmetry, your brain actually is a little more relaxed.
That makes sense.
Bring your knees up, give them a big hug. Okay. And we're going to see what's going on with your core if we roll you into a little ball. So you roll a little bit to the right, not so much to the left. Again, I could see that being part of what happened with walking around with the cast. Sure. So, okay, put those down. And while we're at it, I'm going to grab an arm and a leg. I'm going to roll you toward me. Okay. Very nice. So this is how your limbs connect into your core.
Okay.
And let's see what the other side does. Okay. Nice. And we want to see how shoulders are moving. So I'm going to scoop underneath and I can rock back and forth. That is terrific. And then we're going to scoop underneath your head, see how it connects in. Turns right and left, bends a little to each side, and tips forward and back. So if of everything, the tipping forward and back is a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
And often I find, strangely enough, that when the feet work better, it just sets up this whole chain of how the muscles work together all the way up to your neck. So I suspect we have a little work to do with your left leg. And then we'll be able to recheck and see if your head's looser.
All right.
And I'm going to let you flip over. So a couple other ways that legs work. If you were 7 years old, I'd say this is your swimming legs. So I'm going to lift. Okay, that one, it moves a little bit, but not super easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to turn it out like a frog leg, and that is no go.
Yeah.
So there's something up in here that's a little tight. And let's see about this one. Okay, so it actually comes back, but when I go to put it down, it feels a little hesitant to do that.
Okay.
And I can kind of start to turn it out to the side, and that's about as far as it goes. So not anything to do with flexibility or stretching. It's just how do all the pieces work together.
Right.
They have a little bit to learn. And then we're going to see is if I roll here, that's actually pretty even. Sometimes that is what throws the legs to be off. And then I'm going to check a quick thing at the shoulder. I'm going to lift. Nice. And this one. Very good. Okay. Sit up for me. So I think definitely the incident with the knee cap is really playing into what's going on, and maybe the cast. But so there's two parts of any injury: is what's the trauma at the time, and what else happened. Like if your knee went out, did you fall? Okay.
Yeah, and maybe the situation might help inform it too.
Yeah, tell us.
I was actually at a golf course and it was particularly slippery and wet.
Okay.
I was wearing some new golf shoes or spike shoes at the time too, so it just basically caught the ground at a weird angle while coming down on the downswing, and then slipped a little bit, felt the knee pop, and then I ended up about, I would say maybe 5-6 yards forward to help cover the fall.
So you landed going forward?
Yeah.
Okay. So I always find I like to try to mimic sort of what happened.
Okay.
Because there's relationships in the core or the part of the body that wasn't so affected. Like there's little pieces that contribute to that.
Sure.
So I think we're going to try putting you in sort of a forward position. And I brought along a couple of my favorite tools to use. They're just these fun little peanut balls.
Okay. Oh, that is what they look like. They're peanut balls.
They are peanut balls. But if you fell forward, actually, I think I'll switch them around. I'm just going to let you lay on top of them so that you're kind of forward and down. So that one kind of goes under your belly.
Okay.
And then we'll make sure your head's comfortable. And we'll see so if everything's moving in your core. You good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's just see with a little support. Are you moving equally from side to side?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you caught yourself with your arms probably, right?
Yeah, I do.
So we're going to see, this is sort of like a little bit of a push-up position. It's different than what I just checked. Whoa, okay. If I hold your arm and push up, your shoulder ought to move, and that is not. Let's see what this one does. Okay, see how that works?
Yeah.
So I would guess you might have caught yourself at a weird angle with this one. So let's figure out how it does work. And I'm just moving it to where it goes. And so part of bridging is we're following some rules of physics with movement and how waves. I'm just doing some little wiggles, and what it does is helps the muscles line up, and then they're able to work together. And then there's just if I pause, there's a little tiny stretch, and that actually lets groups of muscles pair up and change how they're working together.
Okay.
So, kind of working this through. And then the other piece of why I've been checking the things I do is that they're such basic elements that if the joints don't work right, or the arm doesn't work right, or the core doesn't work right, any single piece, like anything much more complicated isn't going to be quite right, and you're going to be compensating with that. So
your body sets a new homeostasis point.
Yeah.
That isn't right.
So in my background in engineering, one of the things that that's called is root cause analysis. And what you're trying to do is figure out what's the least little part or transition that actually throws something off where it doesn't work. And I think the most popular, well-known example of that, and you might not be of the age to remember it, but the Space Shuttle Challenger that blew up 1986. So I think you weren't around then. But they had this big investigation, and it all came down to something called O-rings. And the O-rings failed. It had something to do with it was too cold out also. But what's typically an issue from an engineering perspective is transitions are points of failure. And if you think about where you have a joint, that's a transition.
Right.
There we go. We're starting to get some movement here. And, oh, okay. Here, our shoulder's moving all over the place, except for the way that I want it to go. But I think we just have to follow it because it seems like it has to weave itself together a little bit differently. And here, okay, I'm going to try matching them up. Good. And, okay. Can you feel that the left just started to get a little bit more flexible?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. Yay, there we go. It finally is lifting you up. So the arm has to connect into the core.
Yes.
You know, we get our strength from the core, but if it doesn't connect, it's hard to get it. Now your core's moving a whole lot better. So I could actually see the tightness in the kind of upper part of the core and the shoulder might be causing some neck stress too.
Oh, absolutely. My doctor actually has mentioned that. So.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to check that left leg out and see what we find when we're like this. This is your right one. And just going to give it a quick tune-up because it didn't move so well, and that's moving better. All right, let's see what we've got with this left. So with the cast on the foot, do you remember where it's ended? Was it above like at the end of the ankle?
It was above.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give all the muscles around the ankle a little help, a little support. And what we got to do is connect in the front part of the foot so that it can interact with the back part, because that's what gives it the spring. And a little bit like your shoulder, I'm just holding one end and giving the other side some little wiggles and helping them to find themselves so that they can figure out how to work together again. There we go. Are you on your feet a lot for work?
I would say it's mixed. There are some days where I have to be on my feet, 12, 13, 14 hours a day when I'm on set or something like that. And then there are others where, maybe it's an all day at the computer sort of thing. So it's not really consistent.
Okay. Did you feel that change?
I do. It's a very I would almost compare it to like a massage, like a guided massage.
Now I feel the muscles through here are actually flexing, and so they scrunch and they extend, and they're working together better with back here. So let's just see if that lets this leg move a little bit easier. Yes. And so how far up did the cast come? Here?
It came, from what I remember, I want to say it was like upper half of the thigh.
Okay.
So it was like a full leg.
We're going to sort of hold right around there and just kind of help it remember the lower hamstring and quads to work with the upper, and then kind of how they transition into the hip. It seems like they've got most of it figured out, but not quite everything. And mostly when your knee is almost straight, but not quite. There we go. And that just lifted up and connected to your pelvis a little differently. There. So you should, from this, feel like things are just easier. And there. Just matching them up, because we said symmetry is important. And good. Okay, that all seems pretty good. So tell you what, let me make sure that you've got some movement in your core that feels balanced. I'm going to come back to your shoulders one more time just to make sure we're good. Good. Okay, so I want you to push back on your knees. I'm going to get rid of these guys. And we're going to recheck what we first did. And so a little bit of shoulder, a little bit of that left ankle and leg.
Want me to start seated?
Yeah, well, we can go in any order that we want. So before you went to the left and not to the right, and now you're pretty centered. One thing I did not check that I want to know before we're done, I didn't check when you were sitting up to see if your head moves all in different ways and if it's centered, especially since you're talking about having a tight neck.
Yeah, I do. I notice I crack my neck a lot to my left, and there's definitely tightness when I look left versus looking right.
So the left shoulder would go into that because it just keeps this whole side from moving, and so you have to strain more. Okay, so yeah, it feels like it's more mobile, and it's very centered. So that's great. Why don't you go back on your back?
Okay.
And we'll recheck the things that we did to start with real quick. Okay, so left leg was the one that didn't move very easily.
Yes.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
And that one's good. And they're both still very even. And just a double check. I think shoulders were okay before. Wow, that's even better. Yay. Okay, let's make sure this one is just as good. There. Yeah. Okay, and then when I had checked your head before, it went in all the different directions, but it didn't go forward and back so easily. And that feels so much easier. Hopefully it feels easier for you.
It does. It does, yeah.
Okay. And then when I'm teaching, one of the things that I always tell my students, we always have to check this before we're done to make sure that left and right sides are working evenly, because we want to leave you as centered as possible, and that feels pretty good. We just checked what was on your back, on your stomach, sitting. So I guess stand up. Let's check and see how things are when you're standing. Okay, so same things we did before. So just a little to the left, a little to the right. Oh, he moves now. Yay! And we're going to go. And that just seems easier.
Yeah.
And then the forward and back. I don't feel, whoa! Oh, okay, I think we have to practice letting that foot, now that it's working, it has to actually connect up to your brain. So I'm just going to practice that a couple of times with you. So these movements I'm taking you through, they're just really basic. A little left, right, forward, back, turning left and right. And it's really what we learn. We spend hours practicing it when we're like a year old.
Yeah.
Like before we walk. we have to learn how to be steady. There we go. Okay, so let's try this one more time. Yay, you caught yourself. Okay, so balance. So, in the information that you wrote out for me ahead of time, you wrote about balance was a concern.
Yes.
Even though you didn't talk about it earlier today.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on with balance, but I'm thinking it'll be better.
It already, even just standing up, it's strange how much more relaxed I feel. I feel, yeah, almost like you were saying, like my brain is just very at peace right now. And I do feel, especially in the hips where it was tight, a little stronger connection with those parts of my body already, which is I was just not expecting. So
over the next couple of days, you should actually start to even feel more, and then it's going to be normal. So
okay.
If you have the perception oh, it went away, no, it just became the new you.
Okay.
So one thing to kind of pay attention to maybe tonight or tomorrow, the ankle's working differently. The muscles, especially on the front, they're working again.
Okay.
So kind of think of if you are first doing a workout and it's a little intense, it might be a little sore.
Okay.
So they're just not used to working.
Yeah.
Same thing with your shoulder. It's working differently.
Especially this one.
Yeah, so it may feel really nice and loose now.
Yeah.
And if it later today or tomorrow is it's a little achy, it's working in a new way. So it just, all of your daily life stuff is giving it a workout. And then that in a couple of days, that'll be gone.
Okay.
So let's just recap. What we found is that Zach had this injury after high school with golfing, and he fell forward. And the way he caught himself, it's all a reaction. But we never land square. So he probably fell and jazzed up his shoulder a little bit, and a little probably in the core too. And you don't even think of that because your knee was a big deal.
It was not where it was supposed to be.
And then all the hobbling around with having a cast on. And at 18, you're not going to be slowed down with having a cast on.
Well, and also, you just don't really think about that stuff. I mean, I was worried about starting college at the time. And so, you don't really think about the long-term repercussions of not just the injury itself, but the actual repair.
But to see how actually little impact that left on you compared to other people I've seen with casts on legs, whatever rehab you did was actually really good. So the big thing was at the boundaries of the where the ankle and up by toward the hip, how that transition, and that wouldn't have been part of your rehab. It was all probably knee focused. That should take care of most of that, and I think we'll try to check in with you in a few weeks and see how everything is holding up.
Awesome.
And any other questions?
Honestly, no. I mean, I'm very surprised, like I said, at how easy that was, but how already I feel a sense of tangible difference already. So I'm excited to see how the next couple of days go.
Oh, I remember there's two things that a lot of people ask that I forgot to tell you.
Yes.
So a lot of people want to know, what do I need to do or not do?
To maintain.
Right. So really what we did was get your muscles back the way that they should be working. Yeah. So just your normal everyday activity will reinforce that. Okay. So just whether it's working out or work, that just all keeps it all working together. So no particular stretches, no workouts. I would say because of the ankle, you may want to not go running skip a day or two to go running and just let it actually get used to working the way that it is.
Okay.
But that should be it. Should be good.
All right. Wonderful.
Great. Well, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely.
And thank you too. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We'll be bringing you another episode like this soon.